Some comforts are purchased with a currency far more precious than gold or silver. Weighted blankets began as therapeutic tools designed to provide sensory relief for those dealing with autism or severe anxiety. Over the last several years, they transitioned into a trendy household staple because they offer a deep sense of security. We often find ourselves willing to trade any amount of money for a moment of peace. It is a peculiar habit of modern life where we single men spend our entire paychecks chasing a fleeting feeling of safety. Why is it that we possess such an endless craving for external comfort? My existence was not exceptionally difficult at that time. I had finally managed to reconnect with the physical world after my wife and children vanished without a trace 2 years prior. After selling our suburban home and relocating to a small apartment near my office, I followed every instruction from the police and counselors. I returned to my professional duties and tried to maintain a routine. I still struggled to find rest for more than 1 or 2 hours each night despite the heavy sedatives the doctors prescribed, but I accepted that as my new reality. The most intense period of agony seemed to be behind me, since even the deepest grief eventually dulls into a numb ache. I decided to purchase a blanket anyway by ordering a queen-size model from a major online retailer. I chose that specific size even though my queen was no longer there to share the mattress with me. The delivery arrived much later than promised despite my premium membership status. When the package finally appeared, it was not housed in a standard cardboard box. Instead, it sat as a shapeless mass resting partially on my doorstep and partially in the wet parking lot. It had been wrapped crudely in brown paper and secured with coarse twine as if it had been kicked across the country. I joked to the empty hallway that it looked like a rustic gift from a grandmother on a ranch, but the humor felt hollow. I could not ignore the reality that the bundle resembled a dangerous device from a low-budget film. The exterior was battered and stained while the jute string was frayed to the point of breaking. Several sections of the paper appeared singed by heat. It required 3 drinks and a lonely dinner before I found the nerve to slice the bindings. Inside, the blanket was folded into a tight cube held by more of that rough string. The fabric itself seemed high quality with plush blue microfiber and sturdy seams. It carried that standard chemical scent common to factory-fresh textiles. I looked for cleaning instructions on the tag, but the text was an illegible smear of black ink. I decided against using the washing machine without proper directions and simply draped it over my bed. At midnight, I crawled under the heavy layers with zero expectations of success. I had already wasted hundreds of dollars on cooling mattresses and high thread count sheets with no results. As the weight settled over my body, I felt an immediate and shocking sense of relief. I closed my eyes and let my mind wander until I could almost feel my children resting on top of the covers. A fold of fabric against my spine felt like the warmth of my wife. When I finally woke up, it was 10 in the morning and I had missed the start of my shift. I was actually happy to receive a formal warning at work because it meant I had finally slept. However, the chemical odor did not dissipate over the following weeks. It grew more pungent until I could smell it on my skin even after a long hot shower. By the second month, the stench was overwhelming. I took the heavy quilt to a professional cleaner expecting to be judged for the smell. I had a long lie prepared about forgotten leftovers in my car, but the woman at the counter did not ask for excuses. She passed a metal detector over the fabric and immediately refused the job. She claimed the filling was wrong and suggested I use a deodorizing spray instead. I insisted that the online listing mentioned plastic pellets, but she simply pointed at her device and said the word metal before pushing me away. Another month of deep sleep passed while the odor continued to worsen. My manager Taylor eventually pulled me aside to mention the smell, suggesting that a small animal might have died inside my appliances. That was the final breaking point for me. I returned home intending to discard the blanket, but the comfort it provided was too addictive to lose. When you have lost your entire family, you find yourself clinging to any object that provides a sense of peace. I visited several more cleaners until I found a man who offered a solution. He explained that factory machines often drop metal filings or screws into the batches of glass beads used for weight. He told me to cut the seam and empty the contents so I could wash the fabric separately. I purchased a plastic funnel and prepared a bucket for the task. I sliced a small opening in the corner of the seam, expecting a rush of smooth beads. Instead, a heavy metallic object hit the bottom of the bucket with a dull thud. I looked inside and found a gold wedding band featuring a unique fingerprint engraving. It was my own fingerprint on the metal, and I knew the inscription inside spoke of eternal love. My legs gave out and I collapsed onto the bed. The movement caused the blanket to shift and the rest of the contents began to spill out. It was not a clean flow of beads but a disgusting heave of dry flesh and fragments of bone. Thick clumps of biological matter squirted into the bucket like waste from a wound. I watched the teeth of my oldest son bounce against the plastic, showing the same silver fillings he had received for his cavities. A scrap of a Hello Kitty bandage was still wrapped around a small finger bone, reminding me of the day my daughter had hurt herself while playing. I had spent 60 days sleeping under the mummified remains of my family. The authorities were unable to find a digital trail for the shipment. Security footage only showed an anonymous van dropping the bundle off before speeding away. The retail giant provided documents showing they had shipped a standard product, but they offered me a refund in the form